Hello, and thank you for joining our teaching for the 21st Century webinars brought to you by the David Horowitz Freedom Center and the Glazov Gang. I do apologize. I am your host, Annie Cyrus, recovering from COVID, so do pardon my hiccups here. I have been announcing tonight's program for about a week now, and I have announced it as a 6 years of wait being over. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the one and only, the most brilliant mind and the bravest man you have ever met in your life, Dr. Jamie Glazov, on with us tonight. He holds a PhD in history, and his specialty is Russian, US, and Canadian foreign policy. He's also the editor of Front Page magazine, I should say is proper. And he's the host of the talk show, The Glazov Gang, which yours truly is the producer of. He's also the author of the best-selling book, United in Hate, that I have been asking everyone to please read because you will understand what is happening today. Also, his latest book, Jihadist Psychopath. And on top of all of that, he is my hero, my boss, and my mentor. Hello, Dr. Jamie Glazov.
And it's an honor and a pleasure to be here and to be interviewed by you, Annie. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. I have literally counted moments, Jamie, to get to tonight. I was first very upset that I was worried maybe this COVID is going to get in the way and I won't be able to pull through, but I'm glad I am here. But as I apologized earlier to you and our audience, just bear with me. I'm going to do my very best. I may not look like it, I may not sound like it, but this is by far the highlight of my life, to get to ask questions of everything that is very confusing nowadays. And we have you, which to me is one of the most brilliant minds out there to answer those questions. So for that, thank you. Thanks for giving us your time.
Fantastic. Thank you, Annie.
Oh, of course. I'm going to start here. So, Jamie, we started with 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Then we started with a stay home, don't go anywhere. Then we went to, okay, come out, but wear the mask. Then we went to, well, come out, wear the mask, and social distance. And then went on and on and on and on and on to where now? Wear the mask, social distance, keep distance, lose your business, lose your family. And on top of that, you have to take a vaccine that we're not going to tell you what's in it. So let's start from there. Why is this happening?
Thank you so much, Annie. Well, I had the honor of interviewing Vera Sharaf recently, who said so many profound and powerful things. And one of her main themes is that Auschwitz did not begin with Auschwitz. And so totalitarians are very clever for many reasons. They know that a very large percentage of people are sheep, very gullible, want to listen to directions. And we see that today. But they do things in stages. And we know that during the Holocaust, Hitler didn't do this overnight. It started in small steps. It started with a certain piece of cloth, or this certain thing that they directed Jews to wear. Then all of a sudden they had to go over here because you would be safer. Now all of a sudden you just have to get on these trains. And these evil monsters work in these ways, and they do it over a period of time. And so we see that now, exactly what you're saying. They begin with these little steps. There's this magic virus. And when I say magic virus, I don't necessarily mean that it doesn't exist. I'm saying it's magical in the sense that it has a certain purpose. And there's an agenda behind it. It's exploited and manipulated for much darker purposes. And so absolutely, this is all going in stages now. And the scary thing is they're only just getting started. And Annie, you and I have discussed this, throughout our friendship, and we're discussing it all the time. One of the most difficult things at the moment to deal with people and to wake people up is that a very large percentage of people form their political views on how they want to feel. I know many people, I just can't talk to them anymore because if they agree with me If they agree with the situation, it's too depressing for them. And they can't, it's an emotional incapacity. If you were to say, well, there's actually darker forces behind this, the vaccine is actually poisonous, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, then they get too depressed. And so all of a sudden, they don't want to be Republican. They don't want to like Trump. They pride themselves on being liberal, on being a Democrat, and, and they're optimistic. And that way they can kind of get through the day. So we're dealing with something far deeper here, even with what people believe and how gullible they are, because it's a psychological thing as well. A lot of people need delusions and lies, and they disagree with us and with the truth, not because they know anything about facts, but because they can't face reality.
That is very true. And I'm glad you said they're just getting started, because I have this feeling in me and you. Of course, we talk a lot about everything that's going on, and I can't help but to think the connection in my head. First, as I said, comes the, oh, it's COVID. And I can testify right now. It's pretty nasty, yes, but I haven't, thank the Lord, I haven't felt like I'm about to die yet. So, oh, COVID, everybody's gonna die, go hide. And then somehow economy collapsed and everybody went into this depression and panic mode. And then we all went to sleep. We woke up and Biden won. And then, January 6th happened, and then the vaccine. It's like, when you look at it, it's like a perfectly planned series of events that has an end game. So what is that end game, Jamie?
Well, that's a great question. And Annie, you're always coming in on the main issues. Let me talk about one of the end games. It's not what I find fascinating when I've studied the left all my life. It's so fascinating, so interesting how you can tell a leftist right away. Like, for instance, when you see somebody by themselves in their car wearing 5 masks and a face shield and a, astronaut outfit with the helmet on, you already know it's a Biden supporter. And the question is, how do we know that? Well, it's because the left hates individualism. The left hates freedom, and the left yearns for safety, for security. There's much more fear inside of the leftist milieu. There's much more hatred, again, of individualism and freedom. And so it's very easy to, just to see how, how the political framework begins with the masks, the vaccines, the 6, foot distance, feet distance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You already know what's left and what's conservative. And so what does the left really want out of this when we look at this? Well, we know that the left hates individualism and freedom. And so today, when you see Joe Rogan, get better from COVID within, 2 days, you would think that leftists would be celebrating. Oh, somebody got better because they care about lives. But for some reason, they're upset and they're angry because deep down, they don't really want the vaccines to go away. They don't really want the lockdowns to go away. They don't really want the masks to go away, because if they did, they would be supporting a whole bunch of things like alternative treatments, like this and that. And we can bring up many, many things, many, many ways that leftists would behave if they really cared about lives, right? And so, I've studied the left my whole life. If the left really cared about gays the way that they say that they do, well, then they would really be concerned about what Hamas and the Taliban do with gay people. But for some reason, they don't. When feminists, leftist feminists and leftists say that they really care about women, but all of a sudden, when you bring up female genital mutilation and honor killings under Islam, suddenly they don't really care about women too much. And it's all the same. This is just, the game always stays the same. It's just the players that change, as the phrase and saying goes. And so today, it's all the same thing. It's just different dynamics. Annie, you very well know, coming from Islamic apartheid, you have suffered under that torment, and you very well understand what the niqab, what the burqa, what the hijab is all about. Yes, there's many dynamics there, but one of them is to erase the female. On a larger scale, it's to erase humanity. It's to erase the differences between genders. It's the desire and the lust to erase the differences between humans. When we look at the Maoist unisex uniforms, when we look at the burqa, and now we look at the mask, it's all the same thing. It's that yearning for sameness, that yearning to erase God's creation in terms of the sacredness and the beauty and the shining divine gift of every single individual and how different every individual is from another individual. See, the left wants to suffocate all that. It wants to suffocate prosperity and individuality and freedom. And the mask is very, very much a representative of that. And so what's going on here is the attempt to destroy the last shining example, the last shining, beautiful experiment on the face of the earth, and that is the United States of America. Because without America, the light of freedom doesn't have much of a chance to shine in the world. So they had to get rid of Trump. They have to get rid of the United States. Of course, Israel is very close to all of that in terms of respect for the sacred of the human being. And so it's a totalitarian globalist takeover. It's an assault on human freedom. And we think about Genesis. Let us make man in our own image. And we know that we are made in the image of God, in the image of the Trinity. This is a spiritual war. How do we see the image of God in each other? Because the image of God is in us. Do we see it in each other's elbow? To a degree. When we look at our toes, at our knees, of course, but it's our faces. When we see each other's face, we are reminded of God's creation and we see God's image in one another. In whose interest is it to destroy God's creation, to stop us from seeing God's creation in each other? Well, it's a spiritual war. There's a Luciferian satanic agenda behind all of this. And we can get into more of the details. Perhaps it's not for this particular setting of this webinar, but there are truth tellers, Vladimir Zelenko, Dr. Carrie Madej, many, many experts in the medical community that are also pointing to what these vaccines are and their assault. Are these really vaccines or is it gene therapy? And if it's gene therapy, and it's messing with the human genome and with our DNA, then again, something is being done to God's creation. So apart from everything that I just said, the one sentence to answer that question is globalist takeover. Something very evil is happening, and definitely an assault on the sacredness of the individual, of freedom, and a movement towards a Chinese-style mass surveillance system on the planet. You see, because the masks, the 6 feet distancing, the vaccines, these are just steps, because then we have the vaccine mandates. Then we have the vaccine passport. And then once you have the vaccine passport, this isn't just about the vaccine. You have a passport. And then after a while, with all the technology happening, that passport is on your phone. But we know with the technology accelerating and escalating, it begins to go into the body in the form of a chip or what have you. And then all of a sudden you go somewhere and it's facial recognition, you have a certain chip or whatnot, and they know your past, they know who you are. They know if you said that you liked Trump or not, or if you were a bad boy or girl. And you're not allowed in here today because your social credit number is 5. And so that's the direction we're moving in, Annie. And it's a very frightening direction.
Now, Jamie, I wanted to say, since you brought it up, I actually wanted to say this. Someone called me an anti-vax, someone, who's denying the existence of COVID a few days ago. Ironic, right? And my response was, I'm not a scientist. I can't deny what I don't know anything about. I was told I have COVID, I'm dealing with it. And I'm not an anti-vaccine person. I am anti-mandate. I come from a country where wearing the hijab was for the sake and safety of the people. As a 9-year-old woman, you wear the hijab mandate of hijab, so the Muslim man won't be triggered or tempted to commit a sin. That's their safety. And then you're also safe as a woman, 9 years old again. So you won't be assaulted or raped. That's what I grew up with. Now, another fake devilish government is telling me that the vaccine and the mask is for my safety. Am I just being extremely sensitive to the safety mandate, or is there something, is there anything into what I'm saying here?
Well, you're hitting the core, Annie, is the totalitarian movements, when they are coming to power and when they are in power, what is their key word? What is their key theme? Safety, security. And, even when all this erupted, I remember it was really getting on my nerves. There's this, stay safe, stay safe. It's very interesting, stay safe. Like, I don't want to stay safe. I want to stay free. I'm much more interested in my freedom. And I remember there were certain individuals that were just mind boggled speaking to me, and they would be saying like, what would, because I'm not interested in the masks. I'm not interested in all this stuff. And they would be saying to me, well, aren't you really concerned about your safety? And I mean, of course, don't get me wrong. Of course, we get it. Of course, we all want to be healthy and safe. That's not my point here. I'm talking on a larger level, that my freedom is more important to me than my safety, in terms of the safety that the government is going to give me. And so freedom needs to be our priority. We need to be thinking about our freedom. And in America, which is a constitutional republic, if we really want to talk about the Constitution and what America is about, the government has no business trying to protect our safety. The government's business is to protect our rights that are given to us by our Creator. And so that's what's going wrong today. And I will just say this: we see corruption on every single level. In terms of COVID, what are really the numbers? What are they? What are even these cases? We even know that the person who created the PCR test said that it was not even supposed to be for diagnosis. After you do a certain amount of threshold cycles, you can find anything in the body. The PCR test, if you study it, if you research it, and not listen to CNN and MSNBC, but go actually listen to Vladimir Zelenko, Dr. Madej, listen to what the experts are saying. The PCR test is BS. So first of all, the cases are all, this case thing is all BS. We know that the numbers are exaggerated. So why is it that the hospitals were being paid for COVID deaths? Why is it that people were labeled as dying of COVID when they were dying with COVID? So we already know all of that. So the PCR test, problematic. The quote unquote deaths, very problematic. This doesn't mean that our heart doesn't go out to the people who died. That's what the left always does. They want to label us as these heartless people that don't care about human beings. No, we care about human beings. The issue is that they're the ones that don't care. And so the case numbers are BS. The test is BS. And the vaccine injuries, very under reported. And the mainstream and establishment media do not cover it. So everything is extremely problematic here. And we also know that in places like Florida, the numbers, if we want to take them seriously, have decreased by huge amounts. Florida is flourishing. The case number and deaths are very, very low. And you've got to wonder, hey, leftists, if you care so much about lives, and this is really about people's safety, then you would be giving DeSantis a standing ovation, and Florida should serve as an example to what we should be doing all over the country, taking the masks off little kids, for instance. And by the way, this is another whole issue, but if I want to be if we're going to be completely honest, what is one of the main priorities of Satanism? Child sacrifice. And that's what I see happening today. How can anybody in their right state of mind that has any kind of ethical framework in their psyche and in their soul, and you say to them, should we put a mask on a child all day long? A normal human being that believes in God and has any ethics would say absolutely not. So when you have an Anthony Fauci that says that we've got to put masks on children, you already know who these people are and what agenda they have. So Annie, definitely an evil agenda. And when we look at a place like Florida, and thank the Lord for somebody like DeSantis, we know what the left is all about. Because if they really cared, they would be championing what's happening there. But no, they want the lockdowns. They want these vaccines. They want these masks because totalitarianism is in their hearts, and they're building a totalitarian government. And this is the Bolshevik revolution all over again, added with technology.
You said two things that I want to follow up with. Freedom. I can guarantee you, again, life experience, freedom is what's best for our safety, Jamie. Let's say if what happened to someone like me back in Iran, if I had the freedom, the God-given freedom that is offered here in America to me, most of them wouldn't happen, because I would be able to defend myself, because my attacker, my rapist, the man who bought me from my father, would face consequences. So the best way to guarantee our safety is to make sure we hold on to our freedom and stand by our Constitution, no matter what comes at us.
Absolutely. And that's what's being eroded. And we see the Biden administration damaging that and just destroying every day what this country is built on and what it is supposed to be. And Annie, that's a great point. Sometimes it's difficult. There's so much going on to know which direction to take this in. But I would also like to just speak on this for a second, because of freedom, as you mentioned, is so interconnected with the spiritual world. And I don't want this webinar to go away without me saying this, because it's crucial in all of this. There are many things worse than death. And we need to think about that. And it's not that we're for death or take death lightly. Again, I reiterate, it's the left that's interconnected with death. If you look at everything that the left is doing, they're the ones for destruction. They're the ones that cause death, but they're always camouflaging themselves with a moral high ground, and always pointing fingers and accusing conservatives and people who care about freedom that we somehow don't care about people and that we're not humanitarian. So we always have to repeat that. But I want to say this, that when the serpent approached Eve in the Garden of Eden, this is very crucial. The way that the serpent deceived Eve, one of the themes was immortality and you can live forever. That was one of the themes. And we have to keep that in mind today. As Christians, as Jewish believers, and of other faiths, we disagree on some things, obviously, but there's a lot of things that we agree on. And one of the things in the Judeo-Christian tradition of Jewish believers and Christian believers is that and I'll just speak as a Christian, I believe in Jesus Christ's death and resurrection. And I believe that Christ died for our salvation. And so, yes, we die. There is mortality here. And we don't live our life terrified of death, okay? As believers in God, we don't live life terrified of all the risks of everything that could possibly harm us. We don't live terrified because we believe in God and we believe in Jesus Christ as Christians. And that's exactly what's happening with the serpent's lie, with even what's happening today. The mask, the vaccine will save you. Oh, you're so scared. Be scared. Stay in your house. Get the mask on. Get the shield on. Get the face shield on. And now get this vaccine in you and you will live longer, in brackets, maybe forever. There's a certain idolatry here. There's actually something quite satanic happening here, because those of us who believe in God, and we have our Jewish brothers and sisters with whom we have a lot in common as well, and we believe in the afterlife, we believe in our Creator, and we have to keep an eye on this here, that the way that the devil works is he doesn't always come with a blatant lie. He comes with the truth, but it's blurred. It's always blurred. And so something is wrong here, that, oh yeah, we really care about life. Now just put the mask on and go and hide in your basement. And when you see other human beings, they're just vessels of disease. Don't talk to them. If they don't have a mask on, run over here and hide. They want us to see each other as bacteria. They don't want humans to enjoy each other's company and friendship, and they don't want us to engage in the beauty and just the sacredness of human life. So I just want to stress that here, that, you know, when we look at the Catholic Church, for instance, and the Catholic theology, and then we look at what the Satanists do, there's a certain mutation that they're engaged in. In Catholicism, you have baptism, and now all of a sudden you've got the mask, right? There's the Eucharist, the vaccine, Jesus Christ, Fauci. You see, when you lose faith in the Creator, when you don't believe in God or Jesus Christ, that vacuum is filled with other things. So this whole COVID thing, this is actually a cult, and in a spiritual sense. And so believers have Jesus Christ, they have baptism, they have prayer. Well, the COVID cult has the mask, the vaccines, you know, the 6 feet, you know, ritual that they do. And I have to say that if you look at Luciferian rituals, did you know that they wear masks and stand 6 feet apart? And I could go on and on about that. And a lot of people can roll their eyes if they wish to, and they don't have to believe this. But I just want to stress that if we miss the spiritual component to this, we're not going to understand exactly what's going on. And what's going on is that our rights, our freedoms are given to us by our Creator. And the more we think about that, then we'll begin to understand what's really happening here, because totalitarianism is intertwined with evil and it hates human freedom.
I'm going to take a second here and ask everyone, if you have not read the book, United in Hate, please do. And this is not me saying it because I love Dr. Jamie Glazov and he's my boss. No, genuinely. I do love him and he is my boss. But I, as an ex-Muslim, I am an expert on Islam, Sharia, and Islamization. Now, years ago, I read the book United in Hate, and now you all hear me sit here, not here, but on my own program and talk about red-green axis like an expert. Reading that book, connecting it with my life experience is what made me sound like an expert when it comes to it. Now, get the book, read it. We are at times where if you're not educated, you will definitely not understand the battle. If you don't understand the battle, there's no way you're going to win the battle. Now, the reason I bring this up, Jamie, is, first of all, thank you for writing such a brilliant book and years ahead of itself. Like when you, 2008, correct? That's when the book came out.
1 year after that, but you were very
2009.
close. And
Well, 2008 was when you were working on it, so I kind of went there. It's just
I was really
but-
thinking about it.
exactly. When you read United in Hate, and when you listen to your program, it's actually, I have my glasses ready to read a question from audience that is connected to this. You come to realize that the hatred that left has for America, for freedom, for Christianity, for humanity, it's so tangibly unrealistic to people like me and you as humans, as freedom-loving people. But also they have so many different methods to apply their hate and try to burn America down as we know it and build their deluded utopia on the ashes left behind, which are your words, not mine. But on that note, we have Stephen Mix who's asking that, based on what you said, left seem to be always fake. What they want or they supposedly care for is opposite of what they do. So his question is, do you agree that there is a lot of fraud in leftist positions?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Let me just, and also I'll add this. Why is it that Americans haven't seen this fraud yet, or do they see it and rather deny it?
These are the crucial questions of our time. I'd like to thank Stephen for asking such a crucial question. I'd also like to thank Stephen for all the help that he has given a wonderful woman named Annie Cyrus. It's hard to know where to begin, but Stephen's hitting the core. And you see, that's how, you see, the left is very successful because it knows, first of all, what to tap into in terms of humans, because the human being overall, unless you believe in God and you're very courageous and have a lot of wisdom, the leftist temptation is very alluring, because the leftist temptation says, we're going to create a perfect world and you can do it too. We can get back to Eden on our own. We don't need God. We don't need Jesus Christ. We can be saviors. We're going to build a perfect planet and you can too. And that feels really good. And that's what happened in the Bolshevik Revolution. And when we look at Mao, when we look at Stalin, when we look at Castro's Cuba, I'm talking about in the beginning, what was appealing there is that you can build a perfect world. Now, let's just think about it a little bit, what that taps into in terms of the human being. Because when I look at people today with their masks on, I think, what's really spawning that? What's engendering that? And I talked to some of these people and they really fell in love with their mask. But guess what that mask offers them? Yes, some of them are afraid. Some of them are terrified of COVID and want to live forever. I'm not trying to mock it here. Again, we know that some people with underlying health conditions or maybe got really scared. We got all that. We have compassion for people. But we're talking about excessive fear when you don't live your life anymore and when you don't let other people live their lives. But here's what I'm trying to get to here. There were many people in the communist world that felt very meaningless in their lives. And then all of a sudden they got to be a member of the Communist Party and they had their Communist Party card and they walked around and they were a member of the Communist Party. And today they get to put on their mask. And guess what they're doing when they go outside with their mask? They're letting other people know that they didn't vote for Donald Trump. Yeah, we got that. I'm not a Trump supporter like that evil Jamie Glazov over there. But guess what else they're doing? They're saving lives. Oh, I know so many of these people now. They've got the mask on and they're saving lives because guess what? They're a savior. You got to think about this, what the left offers the human being. You can be a good person and you can be better than that person over there, the kulak during the Bolshevik Revolution, enemy of the people. Let's get rid of him. You're better than him. And today, you're better than that unvaxxed, dirty, selfish person who pretty soon not only doesn't deserve a job, but needs to be put into a quarantine camp. But you're so good and you're saving lives. Why I'm stressing that is that I've given a lot of thought to this. What Stephen is asking, why do so many people believe this? Why do so many people become so gullible? Well, because the leftist lie is very attractive, what it offers human beings. Because those of us that are believers in God and his creation, we know that there's original sin. We know that there's the fall. We are broken. This is a broken parking lot that we're living in. We need God. For us Christians, we believe that we need Jesus Christ and his salvation. But the left says, no, you don't need Jesus. You need God. We are self-appointed redeemers. Well, wait a minute. We say that they're self-appointed redeemers. They don't believe they're self-appointed necessarily. They just believe they are redeemers. But you see, they're saving the planet. And the left is a movement of envy and hatred. It violates every single commandment. And we have to begin with thou shalt not covet, thou shalt not steal. Let's even begin with that in terms of how it wants to take from people who work and earn and take from them, right? But it camouflages its hatred, its envy. It camouflages all of that with humanitarianism and a moral high ground. I'm also very interested now. I apologize a little bit because sometimes when people are listening to me, it sounds like I'm jumping all over the place. And that's true to a degree, but I'm putting a bit of a puzzle together and then you can see the whole picture. And I just want to say that I had lapse. They wanted to make an important note. But yes, overall, what Stephen is asking is crucial in the sense of the left camouflages its real objectives, and a very large amount of people want to believe in it.
I am so very happy you brought few points. Well, I'm glad you said everything said, but there was a point there. They're saving lives. Well, let me ask them this, or anyone who might have an answer. Maybe you do, Jamie. So they feel like they're being heroes and they're saving lives. But then where are they when Planned Parenthood is actively killing children out there? Where are they when Saeed's sisters were killed by their father for being too westernized and having American boyfriends? Where were they when there was more than 36 honor killings taking place in America in hands of Muslim fathers and brothers? Where are they right now when we have child brides in Wisconsin military base? What about those lives? Oh, wait, who cares, right?
Well, absolutely, Annie. You're pointing out with those of us with eyes that we can see that you have from the awful persecution that you faced. And when somebody like you suffered as a child bride and all the other atrocities that you suffered under Islamic apartheid, and you would think that you would come to the free world, that so many people would care, including leftists, but they don't. And so you ran across that. And that's part of, I would say, of why you began your battle for many reasons, but also you see the evil of the left and how anti-humanitarian it is and the danger of it coming to power. My parents had the same experience, suffering the atrocities in the Soviet Union, and they come to America and to the West, and all of a sudden the leftists don't really care about what Stalin perpetrated, what the Soviet Union did. Just like today, the left says it cares about lives, but I come up and say, hey, we know this one person, their whole face is disfigured now because of the vaccine. We know another person that died of a heart attack several days after getting the vaccine. And they're like, oh, yeah, you know how they act, right? It's the same thing. It's the same thing as if you bring up a victim of honor killings. If you bring up somebody that suffered under Castro's Cuba, you see the game stays the same. It's just the dynamics that are changing now. There used to be gulag denial. There was jihad denial. Now it's vaccine denial. Now it's mask denial. You know, I've tried to tell people the microplastic fibers from the mask that go into the nose and into the lungs, lung disease, cancer, et cetera, et cetera. They don't want to hear it, but yet they're lecturing everybody about health. This hypocrisy of the left, it's monstrous. It shows that they don't really care about what they're actually talking about, because there's something deeper. There's something much deeper in the leftist cause, right? So, you know, I began to see this, you know, all my life I saw it, but I remember in academia, you know, this, you know, I'm speaking to a few radical feminists and they're just crying because they just want their 7th abortion. And, you know, and just, you know, they're just talking about all the abortion and women's rights and abortion. They've got to have abortion. And then I'm like, okay, can we just get off abortion just for 30 seconds? Can you sign this petition about what's happening to women in terms of honor killing, you know, in the Islamic world? And then they look like they've seen a ghost and they don't want to talk to you anymore. So something's wrong. I will just say that there's 5,000 things that are wrong. One of the things that's wrong, I'll get back to what I was saying. In the heart of the left, there is the belief that we can get back to Eden on our own without God. We can build a perfect planet. In order to build a perfect planet, we need to be perfect, right? The leftist believes that human beings are like clay. You can just shape them. We can build the new Soviet man. We can rebuild man on our own. We can reshape him. Oh, he's got a little bit of a flaw here. Send him to the camps. We can build humans and make them perfect. Oh, this one's not that perfect. Off to the gulag. Now we can make this person perfect. Sooner or later, you begin to see that humans aren't perfect. They can never be perfect. Only God is perfect. And the world will be perfect when God makes the world perfect. We don't make the world perfect. We're supposed to get on our knees and confess Jesus Christ and thank him for his sacrifice for us. Leftists don't believe in any of that. They're going to create a perfect world. They can make humans perfect. I'm getting there now. They can't make humans perfect. So if you can't make humans perfect, but you want to make perfect humans, guess what you end up doing? You end up hating people. You end up wanting to get rid of people. And then all of a sudden you start looking in the mirror, and in the deep consciousness between sleep, you know, David Horowitz wrote about this when he finally left the left. He was saying that it was that time when you wake up between consciousness and sleep when his conscience was hurting him the most. And he began to realize what the left was. And so what I'm saying here is, deep down, the leftist hates himself because he sees himself as perfect, but he knows that he's not perfect. And there's a self-hatred there. There is no coincidence, Annie, and all the viewers of this webinar, there is no coincidence that communist revolutions always end up eating their own children. There's no coincidence that the leftists who went to the Soviet Union to build communism were devoured by Stalinism. And also by Lenin's terror. There's no coincidence that the leftists who traveled to Khomeini's revolution after the revolution and went there to build paradise were extinguished by Khomeini. There's no coincidence that the leftist feminists that go to Gaza to help the revolution against Israel and all of that are abused and raped by the Palestinian terrorists that they come to help. Because deep down, there's a death wish happening there. And it's undeniable. Wherever the left goes, there is a sacrifice of humans taking place. And the left is always shedding human blood. There's a mutated carbon copy there of Christianity. In Christianity, Jesus's blood saves us. In evil leftism, human blood saves the earth. That's why Mao was saying it's very important to kill as many people as possible. But in the end, the blood has to become one's own. In the leftist odyssey, the blood becomes one's own. We know that to be true with suicide bombers and Islam. And there is something very similar with the left. There's a self-destruction happening because Biden and Psaki and Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar and all these leftists right now that are destroying the United States, do you really think that somewhere in their minds they don't know that as the ship sinks, they're on it as well? So this is a very deep issue that I've devoted my whole life to studying, but there's a self-hatred and a death wish inside of the left's odyssey.
Absolutely correct. I will go ahead and read some of the questions from our audience as we are coming to an end of this webinar. This question is by Rodina. I hope I said that correctly. I completely agree with everything Jamie is saying. Things are getting very difficult now. In your opinion, Jamie, how long will this last? And do you see a complete collapse of the system as a result of these mandates?
Very, very crucial question. Annie, you and I have discussed very much how people don't want to hear the truth. And all the time, I'm always told, Jamie, you need to have more faith. You need to be more optimistic. And my answer is no, actually, you need to have faith. Because when sometimes I'm uncomfortable answering these questions because, as I said in the beginning, most people can't hear this stuff. They want to hear that everything's okay. And I'm just saying that for those of us that are believers, we know that we don't get depressed. We're not supposed to get depressed. For us Christians that believe in Jesus, in other faiths, for Jewish people that believe in their God and in a different Messiah, of course, the darker things get, we're supposed to be dancing in the streets. And I'm not saying that it's easy. It breaks our heart to see injustice. It breaks our heart to see a beautiful country being destroyed when we see what Biden is doing. Of course, it hurts. But I'm saying that when I'm going to say what I'm about to say, it doesn't mean that we get depressed and we don't celebrate life and that we don't stay happy and that we don't fight till our dying breath for what is right. All because we might see that we're losing temporarily. It doesn't mean that we become hopeless and get sad. That's all I want to say. So I will say this, that things look very bad. The deep state and the left have spent decades setting all of this up. The left has been battling and waging war for decades while conservatives were having barbecues and trimming their lawns because the most conservatives have no idea how to fight culture war. And thank God for people like David Horowitz and Annie Cyrus and Ben Shapiro and and Dennis Prager and Larry Elder. There's a lot of great people out there, Tucker Carlson, etc., who tell the truth and who fight. Thank God for all of them and for fighters. But I'm saying that conservatives don't know very much about culture war, unfortunately. I'll say that it looks bad. The left has taken over academia and the media and Hollywood and our culture. I mean, just even today, you can't get the truth anywhere, almost anywhere, in terms of what's happening today. So we have to go on the internet, which is also being censored. I will say this, it looks very bad. For those of us believers, we know that there's a timeline where evil takes over the planet, but we celebrate because we know that we've already won through Jesus Christ. We already know that, Christ will return, and we celebrate no matter what. At the same time, we don't know everything, obviously. And so miracles are always possible. The Soviet Union collapsed out of nowhere. Nazi Germany perpetrated mass evil, but Hitler also lost and was defeated. So maybe we'll get a brief reprieve. Maybe there's still time. Maybe Americans will band together. Maybe we'll be able to have some honest elections somehow. And maybe there will still be time and there will be a pushback, and we pray for that.
Amen. Now I'm gonna ask the question that I've been waiting to ask. Me and you, our audience, are very aware of the evil of the left and the Islamic supremacy and the red-green axis in the unholy alliance, yes. But here's where my biggest disappointment comes in, Jamie. Excuse me. Why are Americans, true Americans, not standing up? Because I understand we have, most people, families, jobs, children, I get it. But I really think there was way more we could do, and there's way more we can do as Americans, regardless of everything else. There's no team this and team that, and just Americans. Why are we Americans not doing more, Jamie?
Great question. When we look at even the suppressed videos, but they're still getting out, when we see the masses of people in Italy and France, I mean, there's just mass crowds fighting for freedom, standing up. Why isn't this happening in America on the same scale? And you would think that it would. And I would say it's a tragedy. And I would say that it's a combination of many reasons. The left's success, number one, in its propaganda brainwashing, especially of the younger generation. I mean, what the left has done to the younger generation. I mean, and yes, there's some, smart, of course, it goes without saying, some good, smart young people, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just saying the amount of young people that I've run across that have never heard of Stalin, that just spend all of their time on Instagram and social media, and how they've been brainwashed by the culture. It's really, really frightening. How many of our young people think that AOC and Bernie Sanders have the right ideas? Very, very scary. So look, we've got the brainwashing of the left in our establishment media. I mean, just put it on Netflix, just put it on any TV series, put it on any movie, put it on any commercial. That brainwashing is nonstop. It's brainwashed a very large portion of the American public. Our media, of course, brainwashing the American public. And also there's a certain cowardice, unfortunately, in many people. And then there's a lot of people who really don't understand the danger and have a very, very misplaced belief that the leaders in our government, that the leaders of the medical establishment want the best for you. And that's quite scary. And I'll just say to those people that when you look at the Nazi horror show, and show, of course, is the wrong word to use, but that whole horrific episode, just that horrifying Nazi saga. How did it begin? Doctors and the evil tyrants working together. When you see evil tyrants and the medical industry united, you better get scared and you better start doing something about it. But yes, a very tragic situation of just the malaise and apathy and the lack of any kind of action or caring of a large portion of our population.
That is very true. And we have another freedom fighter who is with us here on the audience, Claire Lopez. She wanted me to say that let's also do mention about the massive pushback taking shape across the country. Thousands choosing to leave their job rather than submitting to the jab or the mandate. And she's very correct. Yes, there are many, many people, parents, nurses, police officers, firefighters, who are saying no to the mandate of vaccine. They are losing their jobs. And yes, thank you, Claire, for bringing it up. It is something to be encouraged with or about. But I will also say If we would have pushed back about a year ago, we wouldn't even have to be here today. And that was my main point. We need to stop thinking we still have time. We don't. We might, but there is no guarantee. As Jamie said during this webinar, those of us who are believers, at least myself as a Christian, every morning when I wake up, I thank the Lord for being here, but I don't expect to be here because we don't know when our expiration date is. So can we please stop waiting for either another day or another person to do it for us? It is time for all of us to take today as it is and fight for today while building a tomorrow and a future. What are your thoughts on that, Jamie?
Yeah, amen. Look, I don't think we're in disagreement here. What Claire, and by the way, Claire Lopez, thank you for everything that you do. Claire, what a wonderful human being, and has been fighting for America and for freedom for so long, and continues to. When I say what I was just saying, I don't mean, oh, Americans. I don't mean that. And what Claire is saying is very important in the sense of, yes, there's a very large portion of Americans that don't get it and unfortunately have been brainwashed and do not have courage. Claire is saying, wait a minute, don't forget, look at all the people that are sacrificing their jobs and da 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 da. Absolutely, absolutely. And we cheer for those people, and we have compassion for them, and they are heroes. People, that doctor that was escorted out of UCLA the other day, and all the other people, the firemen and the police officers. And we know that there's a lot of people right now giving up their jobs, et cetera, et cetera. They're heroes. There's a lot of brave people. Having said that, the American public should be out in mass numbers supporting those heroes. And unfortunately, those numbers are small. And so we're wondering, why is that the case? And what happened to the American public on that level?
Exactly. Okay. Jamie, we are out of time. So please do tell our audience. I have a feeling they already know, but do tell our audience where to go. One, to get United in Hate, a must-read book. Then after that, where do they go to learn more from you, from your program, and support you?
I will say that, but part of my answer into what Claire was saying to everything that we're discussing is, we never get hopeless. We stand up, we continue to fight. And when people say, okay, Jamie, you've said all of these things, how it doesn't look good, what can we do? Before I tell people where to go in terms of me, I want to stress, one of the things we do is support the people on the front lines. And one of the most important people on the front lines is Annie Cyrus. So before I answer that question, Annie, please tell people where they can go to support you, because you're doing a lot.
I appreciate that. Thank you. liveuptofreedom.com. liveuptofreedom.com is the place to go. And then look up Glazov Gang on Rumble.
Fantastic. Please tell them quickly about your artwork.
Sure. I have a artist store on Etsy where you can purchase my artwork if you like to. And the link to that is on my website, liveuptofreedom.com.
That's right. And Annie's artwork, she sent me a check for this. No, I'm just joking. But on a serious note, Annie survived the brutality of Islamic apartheid, and what beautiful art that she creates in terms of her own journey of healing. It touches me so much, but I encourage everybody to get it, because when you also support Annie's artwork, that kind of support also goes to her fight for freedom. And so, Annie, I respect so much your fight in the battle. And I just wanted to make sure that people know where to go and to support you. Get my book, United in Hate. You can get it anywhere. Just go to Amazon.com or go to JamieGlazov.com. Follow me on JamieGlazov.com. Follow our show, The Glazov Gang, where we're trying to discuss issues that other people are not discussing. So go to JamieGlazov.com and watch our show, The Glazov Gang. David Horowitz, one of the great heroes of our time, former leftist that stood up against the left. I don't know anyone really who does a braver, more courageous and powerful job in fighting the left and unveiling its evil than David Horowitz. Frontpagemag.com is the intellectual think tank of the David Horowitz Freedom Center. Make sure you go to frontpagemag.com. I have the honor of being the editor there. It's a great privilege and honor to fight alongside David Horowitz in fighting one of the most evil ideas on the planet. And that idea is the leftist idea. And we want to stop the left in its earthly incarnations, because the earthly incarnations of the left idea is always mass murder. And we're seeing that replayed in this pandemic today.
Very true. And just so you know, Jamie, we have had a couple of requests on comments and questions section where they have asked me to have you on my program to discuss the spiritual battle we're facing today. So I will just put you on a spot right here. Would you please come on my program sometime and discuss the issue?
We will do that, absolutely, and I would love to. And I'm sorry, this might be a little bit unorthodox. There's things flashing across the screen. A great friend of mine from the past, Shane, is watching this show from Canada. I just wanted to say hi to him. That means a lot to me. Sorry, a little bit unorthodox. Annie, I would love to come on your show. Let's do it.
Perfect. On that note, well, I'm always grateful to have you in my life, Jamie, but we specifically for today, thank you so much for your time, for your wisdom, and keep up the good work.
Thank you so much, Annie. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and stay safe, but stay free.
Absolutely. And our lovely audience, we appreciate you always. And remember, these webinars are brought to you by the David Horowitz Freedom Center and the Glazov Gang for free. So if you want us to continue these webinars, please do consider going to frontpagemag.com and make 100% tax deductible. That will help us continue these informative webinars. And as Jamie said, please stay safe. However, stay free, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.